on manufacturing to bring manufacturing back in India. Textiles playing a big role in that, with the government setting an ambitious target of textile exports hitting $100 billion over the next couple of years. We've already seen the announcement of a production-linked incentive scheme. What can India do to regain its lost share when it comes to the textile sector globally? Here's an interview with the top bureaucrat from the top textile ministry.
Actually, we have a vision of right now the size of textile industry is approximately 140 billion, of which about 38 billion is export actually, and balance is the domestic market. We have a huge domestic market as well because we are a huge nation. Now, this export which has been less than 40 billion, has been stagnant almost for last few years actually. It hasn't shown much of a growth actually. Of course, there have been some factors for it. So now basically we want to take this 140 billion to about 250 billions over a period of next 5 years. And export, which was last year only 33 billion USD because of the COVID, and which is expected to be about, we have a target of 44 billion USD for this year, to take it to 100 billion US dollar for next 5 years actually. We are confident that the growth rate which is required per year to achieve a figure of 100 billion US dollar in 5 years time is quite possible actually, because the sector can easily grow at a rate of, let's say, approximately 15% or so per year. So that should lead to more than kind of 100 billion in next 5 years. Our confidence is based on a number of factors actually. There are some, of course, which initiative of the government. I would just like to again reiterate that for export promotion, as you are aware, we had a scheme of ROSCTL, remission of state and central taxes and levies actually. This was initially started, but it came to an end on 31st December 2020. Now, as we all know, export is zero rated. No tax should be exported actually, but there are certain taxes which gets embedded, especially local taxes which gets embedded actually, and these are not refunded. So this ROSCTL now has been extended for up to March 2024 right now. Then, of course, there are certain kind of textile which is not covered under ROSCTL. So the RODTAP also, for those kind of textile, RODTAP scheme also has been notified. So these two are basically ROSCTL and RODTAP. Benefits have already started flowing to the exporter is directly, and in a short run also this would boost the export. Now you must have, you are aware that recently government has announced two major initiatives actually. One is that of a production linked incentive scheme, and the other is a PA Mitra scheme where 7 mega textile parks would be set up actually.
So I will come to the initiative, and we see a slew of them, but I just want to go back for one moment on your point which you just made, that where is this confidence coming from? What are your observations? What have your calculations been done on the base of which these targets have been set up?
No, as I told you, the way market is growing, market size is growing, plus there are certain space which is vacated, let's say by China, and which would be available to India actually. So what we have seen over last even 6 months of this year, approximately 6 months of this year, if you say we have certain strengths actually in certain sectors. For example, we are very good as far as home textile and made-ups etc. is concerned. Our growth has been little poorer in garments and apparel sector actually. But then there are certain, so our export promotion councils and others have identified which are the products which was basically being exported from China, and because of those kind of garments and apparels not being exported from China, that space is available for us. So that has also added to it actually. And there are other things like technical textile and all, where there would be there's a lot of scope for export. So all that calculation has basically meant that we should be in a position to grow, let's say approximately at 15% 9%. And if you compound it actually, then about $40 billion US should lead in 5 years' time to about $100 billion US.
Great points. Thanks very much for furnishing that information. Let's shift focus and talk about some of the initiatives, because I must give you feedback that we speak to a lot of listed textile, home textile and garment companies who are hailing a lot of steps which the government have recently announced as a partner to corporate to really boost exports. In fact, one of the companies was saying that the demand is so high in the West and they are welcoming the steps which you're taking. So let's talk about specific textile parks, PLI. What all initiative is in the mind of the policymakers, and what's the calculation behind it? How would it make a difference for this space?
So before I come to PLI and Mega Textile Parks PM Mitra scheme, as I told you, firstly that we have this ROSCTL and ROTTAP, because in international markets, the margins are not very high actually. So even if the benefit of 4% or 5% or 6% which comes to the exporter in terms of ROSCTL and ROTTAP, that basically makes them competitive, because US we are doing very well, but Europe and UK, because countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam has advantages of duty actually, where we have to pay almost 9% import duty, whereas they don't have to pay import duty actually. So that is little disadvantage we have in Europe and UK, but these kind of ROSCT and ROTTAP benefits basically to certain extent compensates for the higher import duty which we face there. Of course, our Honorable Minister has been working very hard to have certain kind of FTA with EU and UK, but you understand the FTAs are not are little difficult to achieve. Before even a PLI and PM Mitra scheme, we also have done certain legislation as far as the raw material is concerned, because raw material is very important actually. So we have removed a lot of anti-dumping duty, let us say on viscose, stable fiber, PTA, MEG, etc., to make raw material availability easier actually, because in India, our strength is basically that we our presence in entire value chain. So if we can get the raw material either from India and even from outside at a reasonable rate, then our products would be very competitive. Apart from that, now coming back to this PLI, production linked incentive scheme, which already after cabinet approval, our scheme has been notified, and in a week's time we are also notifying its guidelines, and we would basically be proposed that from 15th November up to 15th January, the window would be open for the prospective investors to make their application in the PLI. We are in constant touch with the industry bodies as well as with the individual large investors actually. And there is a lot of enthusiasm, as you have rightly said, and a lot of people have expressed their interest as far as PLI is concerned. So we do expect a lot of investment coming under PLI over next 2 years or so, and the result also would be in terms of production would be available with us in next 2 years' time.
Right. Mr. Singh, just to understand this a little better, so what the government actually wants is that not only Indian companies scale up their operations and try to gain more market share in the global markets, but you're also keen global majors to come here and set up big manufacturing bases either independently or in JV with local partners and make India a export hub for their global operations. Is that the mindset?
Yeah, in fact, more than PLI, the Mega PA Mitra, the Mega Textile Parks, which we initially want to set up at 7 places over an area of minimum 1,000 acres. Actually, it could be much larger also. Now, these mega textile park not only will have an advantage of a scale. Right now, we sometimes lack a scale actually, which even some of our other competitors have. So that is scale. The other is in India, even though we are present in all value chain, our value chain is fragmented actually, in the sense that maybe a spinning takes place at one place, weaving takes place at another place, then for processing the same thing is to be carried out at a third place, and garmenting takes place elsewhere actually. So not only it takes a lot of time, but there is a lot of logistics cost. Our logistics costs are much higher than many of our competitors actually.
Really appreciate the steps which the government is aiming at to take, the scale at which we are operating, and our overall game of textile way higher. There is one concern in the mind of some of the observers who say that many of the countries globally who we are competing with, India is competing with, have FTAs, treaties, etc., and have tax advantages. How are we aiming at competing on that front, sir?
No, I did mention about that little earlier, but let me complete this point which you had said about the FDI and the outside companies coming and setting shop in India. What I was trying to tell you that one of the problems which is faced by the companies when they come from outside, it starts with getting a suitable land, getting a water connection, getting electricity connection, getting clearances. So this mega textile park, which will have a world-class infrastructure with plug-and-play facility, should be a good attraction for the foreign companies, either coming and setting up their own shop, or along with forming a JV with an Indian company and setting up their shop actually. So as far as your previous question was concerned, especially mega textile park would be a game changer that way in attracting the FDI, because even though in textile sector 100% FDI is allowed, but the FDI flow in textile sector has not been very significant so far actually. So that's first point. The other point, as you rightly said,
Right.
some places we face this problem because we do not have a free trade agreement or any such agreement actually. But as I told you earlier, our efforts are on actually. After a lot of gap, discussion has started as far as the FTA with EU is concerned. Our minister has been holding a very frequent meetings actually to clinch some of the FTAs. But as you will appreciate that FTA are basically a give and take actually. In certain things we will gain, but then one who agrees for FTA also has to gain in some other sector actually. So it has to be a win-win situation for both. So we are trying for FTA, and some of the FTA are also likely to fructify in near future, even though I would not be able to give you a kind of exact time frame.
Okay.